We're very pleased to have an award-winning broadcaster, an author, and a great friend of Americans for Prosperity here with us today, John Stossel.
I love the name of your organization. I mean, are there Americans against prosperity? It's a little like those phrases the left uses, like social justice. I mean, who could be against? Are you for social injustice? But you could say, frankly, that there are a lot of Americans who are against prosperity. They just don't realize it, and I was one. When I started reporting, I viewed people like you, look at you, rich country club Republicans, the overclass, the capitalists. It's our job to protect the public from people like you. And that's what I did for my first 15 years reporting, frankly. I won 19 Emmy Awards bashing business, and it was a new role, consumer reporting. We just were inventing it as we went along. And it has valid points. It's good that the press points out the lying or the misleading. I mean, the Coffee Institute was running ads saying, coffee's the drink that picks you up while it calms you down. So we'd call them up and say, how can you say this? It's contradictory. Well, we have research to back this up. Really? What's the research? Well, we surveyed thousands of people. We asked them, what do you get out of your coffee break? Some people said it picked them up. Some people said it calmed them down. Libby Owens Ford Glass Company ran ads saying, look how clear our window glass is. And they shot them with the windows down. So, and I did this night after night, and this is why we consumer activists said you got to have government regulation to protect us from the capitalists, or at least lawyers suing to punish the bad guys. But then I watched them work, and I'm ashamed to say that it took me maybe 15 years to figure out what many of you intuitively get, that these laws do more harm than good. Not all of you, Liz, I understand you're not one, but I came to see that, first of all, there's the cost. And the worst of it is not the direct cost that you fight, the payments to the bureaucrats. You know, that's significant. But I would say the bigger cost is the indirect cost. All the money that's spent and the creative energy that's lost just trying to figure out what all the new rules are and obey them or get around them or hire a lobbying organization to keep Springfield or Washington from putting you out of business. That's all creative energy that could be going into making better products. You got the smartest kids who, I went to New Trier, going to good colleges, going where? To law school rather than medical school or engineering or physics. And that doesn't make America more prosperous. I understand why they're doing it. It's where the action is. But it's not that good for the country. What did all this rulemaking do and all this suing? Well, what started to bring me around was I soon saw it didn't even work on the obvious crooks. On the people selling the breast enlargers or the burn fat while you sleep pills. They kept getting away with it. I mean, they're still getting away with it. Maybe the attorneys general would go after them and 5 years into their scam, and then they would hire a defense lawyer who would hold the regulators off for another 5 years, and then they would just change the name of the product or move to a different county. Or they'd sign a consent order, which is where you say, we don't admit doing anything wrong, but we'll pay the lawyers and we'll stop doing it. By contrast, the more I saw the ruthless, selfish competition of the free market work, the more I started to say that, gosh, that protects us better than lawyers suing or government regulating. It's not perfect. Perfect isn't one of the choices. There will always be Enrons and WorldComs. But while I could find lots of stories to do as a local consumer reporter, once I got to Good Morning America, I couldn't find that many big scams. Because the market gets rid of it. Word gets out. The good companies thrive and the cheaters atrophy. The way to get really rich in America is to serve your customers well. But people don't get that. They don't trust that. The market works to protect us even in areas where intuitively you wouldn't think it would. And as an example, Look at the greedy, profit-driven companies that have employed me. I've worked for the three biggest networks, ABC, NBC, CBS. They get all their profit, every penny, from advertisers. So intuitively, you would think they'll let the advertisers run the show, control the content, bias it. And yet, they don't. All three networks have boards of censors that review every ad any company tries to put on. They drive the ad agencies crazy. They demand wording changed in almost half the ads. Sometimes they turn the money down outright. Why would they turn the money down? Because the market protects us in unexpected ways. In this case, the networks figured out that they'd make more money if their ad time was not thought of as sleaze time. So they police themselves. Or how about the fact that I was allowed to be a consumer reporter? I was allowed to criticize the people who paid my employer. Why would they ever do that? Ralph Nader, when consumer reporting was beginning, said, you'll never see that happen on commercial TV stations because they won't want to tick off their sponsors. Yet, what's the truth today? There are consumers reporters on most commercial TV stations. Ralph Nader was totally wrong, as he is about so much. Why was I allowed to do this? And I did a story on aspirin, saying the aspirin makers are lying in their ads. And they were. They were all saying they were the best when aspirin's aspirin. Bufferin works twice as fast, Bristol-Myers claimed. Well, I said they were lying. Bristol-Myers, which makes Bufferin and Excedrin, sued me and CBS for $25 million. I was 25 years old at the time. I assumed I was toast. And yet CBS said, no, go ahead, keep consumer reporting. Why? Again, because the market works in unexpected ways. In this case, they figured, yeah, they'd lose some money in paying lawyers to defend these lawsuits and in the angry advertisers who pulled out. But more of you would watch a news program that told the truth about sponsors' products too. And so they'd make more money. The market will protect us better than government. Now, when I tell people this, they say, well, maybe that'll work for trivial stuff like that, but when it comes to the serious stuff, whether we're safe, whether we live or die, then you got to have government, because we can't judge these things for ourselves. We need OSHA to protect the workers and the CPSC to look for the dangerous products, and the DEA and the FDA and the whole alphabet soup of agencies that keep growing in Springfield and D.C. And intuitively, this makes sense to me. It's a complicated world out there. Take the FDA. I can't judge what makes a drug safe and effective. I need them to be the gatekeepers. But now I have to say, because these regulations, by interfering with the market, always create nasty, unexpected side effects. And they're worse than the good government does. Let's look at it in just one area where I would say most of you would say, we got to have regulation. Let's look at the FDA. Their mandate is to make sure the drug is safe and effective. And as I said, that sounds like a good thing. And their first big success, some of you are old enough to remember it, was the drug thalidomide. This was something that women took during pregnancy. It prevented morning sickness, but some of the women gave birth to kids with no arms and no legs. It wasn't that the government was so smart that it protected us. It was just so slow in approving things that by the time thalidomide was toward the end of the approval process, the bad effects were being seen in other countries. So I'm glad they protected us from thalidomide. But is it worth it? I don't think so anymore. Because the state, by protecting us from bad things, protects us from good things, deprives us of good things. And that's worse. Now let me explain. Since the thalidomide success, the FDA has grown in size 12-fold. Now to get a new drug approved, it takes 12 to 15 years. Some years ago, they proudly announced at a news conference that they were approving a new heart drug. This new beta blocker will save 14,000 American lives a year, they said. Now, no reporter stood up to say, hey, that's great, but didn't that also mean you killed 14,000 people last year? And the year before, and the year before that, and so on. No reporter asked that because reporters don't think that way. But think about it. It did mean that if you have a 15-year approval process.